What's up, everyone? This is Ignatius, and tonight I am recording what's probably going to be an extremely long and super comprehensive video on the Spark Stormweaver build that I've been running in the .4 season. The build is nearing its final form, outlining, two different routes I might go with something, and outlining, purchasing some really giga spend items, which I won't be featuring in this sort of release of the build and explanation of everything the build does. But I think it's time to kind of push this out, and then I may have one more video like weeks from now when I completely min-max this build. But that min-max will mostly be item-based, and then one decision I have to make, which I'll discuss. You can make the decision as well. Also in this build, I'm going to talk a lot about skill interactions, support gems, some of the stuff that may be basic for some folks, but after kind of going through this season with my community and with folks in Discord and in DMs, basically what I think I realize is there's a lot of things that are, intuitively understood by players who have had a lot of time invested in the game, which are looked over by players who have not. And some of them are just like basic support gem interactions. Like, I get it, people's lives are really busy, so they pull up the MOBA guide, they copy the gems, and they go. And then, they maybe don't realize an interaction with something on the tree or something on an item that makes or breaks the gem, things like that. So I'm going to really dig into depth in every aspect. So this will be like a catch-all in one video. You will understand everything that's going on with Spark Stormweaver and the mana variant that I'm going to show you and why it's very powerful and how it will scale to something that is on par with the S tier builds of the season, minus maybe a little bit of speed, but this is going to be pretty fast, and I can kind of show that in a bit. Okay, before I dive into all that, I want to shout out two creators who have been doing Spark Stormweaver as well this season. Everyone has probably seen their content. One is Operator Otter. This guy has gone full ham on Spark Stormweaver this season. He had a schedule for campaign practice that I thought was really cool. He's sort of done like daily build updates, and he's very passionate about providing good quality content and updates to his community and viewers. So I highly recommend Operator Otter. Another is Big Daddy. For me, this guy is like an armor stacking legend from PoE 1. I didn't even know he played PoE 2, and he went Spark Stormweaver this season and has sort of like a daily build diary as well. And I've kind of watched what the two of them have done this season, and have tried to sort of forge unique paths in the build just because that's more fun. And I think, based on what I see the other Spark Stormweavers of the season doing, what I'm going to show tonight is a bit of a change, a departure from this normal way of playing the archetype. And scaling it is something that in PoE 1 is like a little bit more standard, with stacking an attribute or stat for like a lot of power. And in PoE 2 we don't see it as often because there's not as many ways to do it. But you'll see its potency, you'll see its power, and it'll make sense to you why it's really the way to go with Stormweaver ultimately. So that you can unlock like much higher tier power with the Ascendancy and everything that Stormweaver can do. Okay, so without further ado, let's dive into what's going on with some of the decisions that I have made with Stormweaver. So first, I'll start with the Spark support gems. These are like really important to talk about. So in a common Stormweaver Spark linkage this season, you will see something like this. And I believe this is Operator Otter's, standard setup. So you got rapid casting, prolonged duration. We have Proj 3 here. Actually, wait a second. That was wrong. Let me grab Otter's POB right now, because I don't think that was it. I'm guessing that's not it, because it's not usually the linkage. Oh no, that was it. Okay, so Project Cell 2, Pierce 3, Pinpoint Critical. You may see the lineage Project Cell gem here. Just depends on like what you're doing. But let me talk about the concept behind this linkage. So the concept is that you're getting out as many sparks on the board as quickly as possible. And it works very well with Stormweaver because the mana regeneration provided by Stormweaver is really strong. And then also you're proccing lots of crits, which is summoning elemental storms. And these though they don't have a ton of like damage linkages in them, and the tooltip damage numbers aren't that great, they're pretty strong. You're also juicing up Comets by charging up your Spell Slinger. There's a lot of good interactions going on here, and I did something similar to this linkage for much of the season. Oh, you're also, proccing cast on crit and more sparks, super spammy, that kind of thing. Now, here is why I decided to depart from it, at least experimentally. I'm not like trying to say that this is better. It's just another approach. So what I didn't like about the super spammy spark, which played like this, is that the movement speed, the speed of the clear is slow, and it's contingent on constantly casting while moving. And I even explored things like mobility, things that I could move faster. I tried out blink. And ultimately, what I realize is that unless I can get it so that a fewer number of sparks does a ton of damage, mapping is just going to be much slower than I would like it to be. So insert the linkage that I have here. So the only gem that's going to be the same from the standard linkage is Pierce 3. And you probably should definitely have Pierce 3. There's also Project Cell 2, which has a 40% chance to pierce with no downside, plus the more proj speed. You'll notice Pierce 3 has all targets get pierced, but then a 20% less for each enemy pierced. I believe what that means is that by Pierce 3, you're doing like 40% of your damage, which is pretty bad. So I keep toggling back and forth between these in maps. I have been for like 3 or 4 days trying to figure out which one's better, but it's pretty hard to tell because Spark is so spammy. All right, so that gem is set. That's standard. Pierce 3 is here. Now here's where things are really different. We're running Scion's Temper. So what this does is it gains something called wild shards. You'll see them up here. And basically as it gains them, you have a 20% chance to fire one per wild shard. So basically when you get to 5 wild shards, it's a guaranteed consuming of the wild shard. And when you consume it, you fire 8 additional projectiles. Now, the standard proj fire on Spark, I believe, is 11. So you can see that 8 is 8 out of 11, more proj and, more damage, something like that. I'm not going to grind all the math there, but it's a lot more damage. Now, another reason this makes sense for Stormweaver is the infusions, right? When you gather infusions and you go spam Spark, they're gone pretty fast, and you're out there shooting, non-infused sparks quite often. I mean, you can keep the uptime on them pretty good, but you're shooting non-infused sparks quite often. So if you can narrow the number of sparks you shoot, but infuse all the projectiles with that consumption, you're doing like a net much more efficient damage style. So then another thing that works along with Scions and just this overall concept of shooting fewer sparks but doing a lot more damage is Unleash. So what Unleash does is you gain these things called seals. You can see them down here in the tooltip, and if I fire this, my seals get consumed. And about 2 seconds later, I think it's a little bit less than 2 seconds, the seal gain interval is 1.4. So 1.4 seconds later, we have 2 seals again. And what the seals do is they get consumed, and it repeats the skill when you cast it. So supported spells are unsealed when cast, and their effects reoccur for each seal lost, and then 50% less damage when reoccurring. So you get a full damage initial spark, and then you get 2 50% less damage sparks. Now what's cool is that there's a neat interaction between Unleash and Scion's Temper. Remember, we're trying to gain wild shards with Scion's Temper. And you'll notice we have 3 right here, but we're about to cast 3 sparks. So each of these in the Unleash is going to go through the Scion's iteration. You can see the first one consumed, the second one consumed, and the third one gave us a new wild shard. Maybe I'm full of it there. Doesn't seem to be working. I swear I've seen it do it before. I mean, the very first one confirmed it, right? Because it consumed and then we had one more. Okay, there's 5, I'm guaranteed here. Yeah, and we have one more. In some way, the interaction is happening. Maybe I'm casting them before they juice up, and that's what's happening. I'm certain that the interaction is happening because I watch it constantly, but I'm not, 100% certain how it is working. Maybe I was just getting lucky on a lot of those. So that one, I think 2 of them were wild sharded, and the third one was not wild sharded. Gosh, that really just came out of my mouth. Okay, so cool interaction here, right? We're cycling through wild shards with Unleash. So already with just these 2 gems and the infusions, we are more efficiently using our infusions because we're shooting a 19 proj cold infused spark with wild shards that repeats, and sometimes the repeats will consume wild shards, and of course the repeats will consume the infusions. I confirm that as well too. Basically proving things to myself. Yeah, you see we consumed 3 there with the Unleash. So in one attack, we consumed 3 infusions. We sent out 1 or maybe multiple wild sharded attacks. And then the idea is that then we can keep moving. So when we get down into a map, we get some infusions and we fire and then we just move and things die. And we fire and then we just move and things die. And we don't have to sit there and go like this in order to clear mobs. So that's the whole idea behind it. Then I also have considered casting in here. I've messed around between pinpoint and considered. At this point, my crit multi is higher than running Malagaros, so pinpoint actually reduces the DPS, but it does increase the crit chance, which procs more elemental storms. Ultimately, I'm going to go higher with crit bonus, so I'm going to stick with considered. And then efficiency is nice because we are mana stacking, but we'll get to that later. Okay. Next interaction I want to talk about is Frostbomb. So this one I'll go a lot quicker on. But basically, Short Fuse, Spell Cascade, and Spell Echo, along with the Ascendancy node for +2 limit and Overabundance, allows us to get 4 infusions from 1 Frostbomb. And you can see that right here. And then they reoccur because our Ascendancy is awesome. And we have 4 again. So we've got 8 infusions we get to go through because of the linkage in Frostbomb. And also realize that Frostbomb applies elemental exposure, 2 exposure per pulse, maximum of 50%. On bosses, the exposure combines with your elemental weakness curse to reduce the boss resistances even more. So just important to call that out there. Okay, so again, on the subject of this, we're trying to move quickly and clear more quickly. Mana Tempest functions a little bit differently now. So in the previous iteration, at least as I was running it, when we were casting sparks quickly in succession and sustaining mana, I would cast a Mana Tempest and sit in it. And I could sit in it for a long time. In my last build update video, I was sitting in it for like 14 seconds in hideout shooting. So that's like no recovery on kill stuff. Pretty bad situation, and it was 14 seconds. Well, now, because we're just doing burst and moving on, all we care about is a really quick Mana Tempest when we want it for the 96% damage as lightning. So first of all, do not quality this thing. It will last for 4, and you'll be out of mana all the time. And then rapid casting and cooldown recovery and efficiency are really nice because basically you're going to Frostbomb. You're going to just mana and walk and see how it's on me. 2 seconds. Mana and walk. And you just want it for that 2 seconds. You just want it for that short temporary damage boost. You can see it's a 25% more damage boost. So basically the way this will play in the map is mana walk, unleash shoot. You can rebuild if you want. Mana walk, unleash shoot. And that's just kind of how it plays. So that's a little explanation of the Mana Tempest gems. The last two things that I run are Blasphemy and Elemental Weakness. This defensive layer of Blasphemy with Temp Chains is extremely strong. And when I've watched other Spark players play, they're not running it because they want to do cast on crit, and they are dying a lot. And I see a lot of frustration from dying. I was able to cruise up to level 95 pretty efficiently this season, probably the most efficiently I've ever done it because I'm usually on a flimsy dex class. And a lot of that is due to this right here. So as much as I want to turn this off and do other things, I will start dying. This defensive layer is really, really strong. Slows targets by 67%. Obviously, it's not as good on rares and uniques, but, it's very potent. Realize that Heightened Curse makes this cost a lot more mana. So we have 24 available. Heightened Curse goes in, we have 3. So it's roughly 21 mana. And realize as well that we get Curse Magnitudes with quality on the Temp Chains, and we get Mana Res Efficiency with quality on the Blasphemy. And you want both of these to be as high level as you can. And yeah, the other linkages are just kind of in quality of life, make it a little bit better. Last thing's the LE weakness. I think it's pretty straightforward, but basically you don't want to nuke a boss until LE weakness is on them. It's just an incredible damage boost. If we come into my POB for this variant, which I've been kind of working on to show, trying to figure out what my real DPS is. It's really hard in PoE2's POB because so much stuff is not supported. Like I was going through my gems and I was like, oh, that's not supported. Oh, that's not supported. Like there's so many things that they don't. That's not supported. Spark itself has unsupported things. So it's pretty unreliable when you look at the DPS in the POB2. However, it can be good for comparisons, for showing like the difference between things. So if I go to configuration and we go to a boss, you know, a Uber boss is going to have, I can't remember what these were at. I think these were at 30. We'll go standard boss. Yeah, I think these were at 30. So if we go 30 and 30, you can see when the boss has 30 all res, my full DPS in this setup is 2.9. But when we expose them and LE weakness them, they're going to drop about 50 res in each category because PoE2 was, you know, kind of babied us and they put all the res reduction in one category. And you can see we go up to 4.2 mil. So this is where POB is reliable, is comparisons, dropping in different items, messing with configurations, seeing how powerful things are. But yeah, don't nuke a boss without LE weakness and exposure. It's nearly double damage. Okay, I think that's everything I wanted to say about the build. There's other things to talk about, like LE Storm, which procs on crit and can build up some damage and is used for slow potency and debuff. Sigil of Power, which you slam down on a boss before you nuke, just gives you like free extra damage. And yeah, some people are running the Siphon Elements for more infusions. I don't find it to be very good for this build. We just need Fire and Cold, and we generate both of those with just Frost Bomb and the different elemental infusion. So yeah, that's probably all I will say on that. The next thing I want to talk about is the crit setup for this build. So I noticed that the other creators, or at least the other creators that I've looked at, they have Malagaros in as like a staple. This is like incredible. These gloves are incredible. Crit bonus is just 250. You don't have to scale it. You don't have to invest in it on the tree or jewels or whatever. And that's amazing. Super cool. I never bought them. They were really expensive, and I knew eventually I was going to mana swap and stack more crit than 250. Right now, I mentioned like I'm not in a high invest moment in this build yet. Right now I'm at 310. I'm gonna try to get to like 450, maybe 500 if I can really go ham on the mind over matter stuff, which I'll talk about. But yeah, so that's kind of the difference there. And then the same thing with Pinpoint Critical. Yes, you're increasing the chance. You're proccing more storms. You're proccing more cast on crit. It all makes sense in another variant. But in this variant, we just want as much crit bonus as we can get because we're going to scale way beyond the Malagaros threshold. So yeah, that's a bit on crit. Okay, now the big switch here is from ES stacking to mana stacking. So my previous variant, which I can pull up here, it was kind of like a cheap budget mapping variant. And that was this one right here. This was a 2 divine build that could clear everything. Now, it wasn't, super clean, not as clean as what this new variant is doing, but it could clear everything. And that's the cheapest build I've ever had that could clear everything. This thing stacked a lot of energy shield. I think when I got a few small upgrades in gear pieces, I was at like 11 or 12K without trying too hard. That's pretty crazy. And I ran convalescence for recharge. It was cool. However, the energy shield cannot give you damage. And when you swap over to a mana stacking build rather than an ES stacking build, you can get lots of damage from mana. Now, the first way and sort of the cornerstone of the build is Archmage, which, if you're not familiar with it, I'll just talk about it a little bit. A massive spirit reservation gem. It says 100, it's actually 90 because of the quality. And your non-channeling spells gain 4% of damage as extra lightning for each 100 max mana that you have. And I want to say in POB, Archmage was not supported. Let me see here. Let me turn it off. Oh, no, it is supported. Okay, so look at the difference. Look at the difference. 1.8, Archmage on, 4.2. So it is a more than double damage multiplier onto our damage. And we are modestly mana stacking. We are at 4,800. I have a few key gear pieces, but I'm going to go try to get up to 6,000. And we have more things we're going to do to capitalize on the mana for damage. And there's also a note up here, 3% increased spell damage per 100 max mana. Obviously, that ends up scaling really, really nicely. And basically, with this interaction, and there's actually one on the two-handed staff, and I'm going to experiment with that once I get off of using the wand, because I think eventually the wand is going to go in favor of the fact that Spark is just going to do so much damage. But if we go with, I don't know, Lightning Stack, and we go down to desk created mods, we have increased spell damage per 100 max mana, and it goes up to 5. So if we combine that with the tree, we've got 8% per 100 max mana. Let's pretend we're at 6,000 mana, and we'll divide it by 100 for, each tick, and times that by 8. That's 480% increased spell damage. Can you imagine if you saw that on a weapon or something like that? And we're just getting that from the fact that we are stacking mana. So that's kind of a cut and dry what's going on with mana stacking. What does that mean? Why are you doing that? We're doing it for damage. The other reason to do it is a defensive layer because, as you know, ES recharge is a bit finicky. You can't really control it. It's not constant. Well, you can go two ways. So the general effect for the defensive layer is to go with either Mind Over Matter, the actual notable, or you can grab lots of small nodes that give you small amounts of the Mind Over Matter effect. Now, the small node, small amount route is preferred, and that is because Mind Over Matter, I'll call it Mom from now on, has a huge drawback, which is 50% less mana recovery rate. That is from all sources, so pretty brutal. Your flask, your regeneration, your skills, whatever, all sources are reduced in half. That's actually brutal, right? Now, I've experimented with both routes. I've gotten up to 74 by taking small nodes and stacking it on all my jewels and a few pieces of gear. And then I've also tried out just going hard Mind Over Matter, so that way I have all the other skills and affixes for damage. I'm not sure which one I'm going to land on. At the beginning, I talked about how I still have a big decision to make. It's kind of a fork in the road, whether to go Mom straight up and invest the rest in damage, or to get Mom up to around 60-70% from nodes. Chakra is over here. There's even a few others. There's one right here. And then gear and jewels get up to 60-70. It takes a bit of investment in points, and so you lose damage, but you recover so much better. So your mana is like constantly recovering, faster than it does on a health globe with a potion. Your potion supply nicely to mana, that kind of thing. So that's the defensive layer. It's a really good defensive layer. Because ES is so broken, you stack it so high. I mean, you can get 20k, like not too much trouble. The ES layer is better. I'm not going to say Mom is better. However, in Mom, we get to use our defensive layer, which regenerates nicely, and make it also give us more damage than we could ever get in the ES variant. So that's the idea behind stacking mana and going Mom. And I'm going to be exploring how best to optimize that on this build for the rest of this season. Last thing I'll say about it is Eldritch Battery. This converts all energy shield to mana, and then it doubles your mana cost of things, which is so sad. We compensate for this with different nodes that have mana cost efficiency. I've got it here on my wand. There's a really nice one over here. and some others in some various places on the tree. And basically, we're compensating for this double mana cost because our mana is our health, right? It's kind of like a blood mage, but actually using mana. It's pretty cool archetype-wise that Stormweaver does this. But yeah, we're making up for that. Now, converts all energy shield to mana. What it means, at least as far as I understand it in this game, is it's just converting our base energy shield to mana, not our increases to maximum energy shield. So when we take a node like this, 60% increase maximum energy shield, that is not getting converted in Eldritch Battery. So we want our items to have base decent energy shield, but we don't care about scaling them with increases to maximum energy shield, which these two nodes on my amulet, I do need a newer and better and probably extremely expensive amulet for proper mana stacking. But yeah, those two nodes on the amulet are not adding to the Eldritch Battery. Somebody let me know if I'm wrong. Pretty sure that is how it's working. Last thing on the tree is we sort of abandon all generic damage nodes and go for crit stacking. So everything you see is crit, crit, crit. There's lots of different versions of, how to do this. You're basically competing between skill effect duration, cooldown recovery, some charge and mana things, and then crit. Those are sort of the four things on the tree that you're improving. I will say on the Ascendancy, this was like a huge breakthrough for me because I wanted this for sure. I wanted this for Comet for sure. And then I wanted this because the Ellie Storm and Limit is so powerful. However, then we lose Arcane Surge. Well, if you come over here and you grab just a few, here's 10% chance to gain on crit. And then here's 2 more 5% chance to gain our Arcane Surge on crits. For these two 4-point nodes, you will have Arcane Surge all the time because you're critting all the time with Spark. And then you can drop this and you can go nicely on the tree. I do think eventually I'm dropping Comet. And when I drop Comet, I don't care about this anymore. And when I don't care about this anymore, I can go here. And then when I go here, I can get 6 more points back. And that's going to be a ton of more, crit bonus on the tree. That's going to be fun to get there, but not there yet. This is a Band-Aid fix for now. Anything else to say about the tree? I think that's it for the tree. Okay, what else do we talk about? Last but not least, items. Usually I go through items really quickly in my videos. Itemization is such a finicky subject. Everybody has to do it differently. Some people like to self-craft. Some people just like to buy what they need. I've done a mixture of both. I've done self-crafting on the wand and the focus and the rings and the amulet. And I have probably saved like 100 divs doing it myself. And the crafts are pretty straightforward, and I'll talk about them a little bit. But yeah, so as far as the wand and focus, you have to have a dueling wand. The dueling wand gives you Spellslinger, and Spellslinger charges up and then lets you know with a little proc right here when you're allowed to shoot a comet at will with no cooldown. And the comet is, extremely potent. It does an incredible amount of damage, and it's a triple comet with lots of AoE. So Spellslinger is awesome because you can kind of map around, you can kill regular mods, and then you come up against a rare, you come up against a nasty, and you just delete them. It also helps with proximal tangibility in the maps. So some of the monsters have that mod where you can't damage them if you're too close. Well, you can run right up to them and comet them in the face. The last thing it's been great for is bosses. So with the new boss timer, the boss spawns, and you can kind of do some random stuff here and there, and you'll have a comet. And then maybe 3 seconds in, I noticed their boss timer is mostly gone. And then you can comment on them and just delete them. So you've got to have a dueling wand. And you also, for now, want to have all spell skills everywhere rather than some particular element skill. And that's because so many of these spells are benefiting from the skill scaling. Probably the ones that are most important. Mana Tempest is getting more damage with the spell skills. Archmage is getting more cost efficiency with the spell skills. Ellie Weakness is getting more curse magnitude with the spell skills. And, you're able to scale Comet and Spark at the same time, which are 2 main damage dealers. So yeah, I think it's, there's not really an argument for lightning skills until we get into a full Spark variant, which we might get to. Outside of that, the other mods are mods of choice for me. So damage is extra. You want lightning or cold because that's what you're going to be scaling. Spell damage is obviously fine. I actually would probably prefer to have spell crit there now. And I could swap it with Omen of Light, but I'll probably just craft a new one. And level of skills and then mana cost efficiency. I'll see where that ends up landing. I'm not going to go through a full like how to craft this thing kind of guide, but I'll point you to two things. Number one, Craft of Exile will tell you everything you need to know about how to get the properties that you want. You just have to kind of think about it a little bit. And I say that as somebody who couldn't use this tool before because it was kind of so intimidating. Like you come in here and there's all this stuff and there's like just stuff everywhere, right? We'll just come into the homepage, click one-handed weapons, and click wand. And what you have is prefixes over here and suffixes over here. And if you scroll down, you have the things that Abyss can put on it. And if you scroll down further, and perhaps most importantly, you have the things that essences can put on it. Essence exclusive mods. Now you can essence regular mods, but these here are exclusive to the essences. Same thing with the desecrated mods. You can desecrate on a regular mod, but you can also hit an exclusive desecrated mod. All right, so over here, you can kind of treat this as like, how do I build the wand that I want? And then when you figure out the properties that you want, you can go look in the shop to see if you can get them easily. So let me give you an example. Of course, we want level of spell skills, so we'll select 4 there. And then I was saying earlier that I really want critical hit chance for spells. So let me go see if we can get that. The other thing I said I liked was the mana cost efficiency, so we'll look for that too. Come into the shop, and this is just like, this is more of a guide to like teach yourself how to understand crafts in your own silo rather than like following some prescription or recipe. You come in here and just type in wand and see what the essences do. And they do different things at different tiers, and the perfect ones tend to be extremely different than the greater ones. So just kind of look at that. So we have greater essence of seeking. On a wand, we can go from magic to rare and get crit hit chance for spells guaranteed. Alacrity, we can get cast speed guaranteed. So if you're on that other variant I was talking about, that Big Daddy Otter variant, you may want cast speed on your wand. Well, you can go magic to rare and get cast speed. Or you can do sorcery, and again, a lot of people are spell damage enjoyers. You can go magic to rare and get spell damage. Then when you get to the rare tier, you can look at perfect essences. And here, we're going to remove a random modifier, and we're going to add mana cost efficiency. And here, we're going to add level of all spell skills. These are nerfed, so the tier is lower than what can roll naturally, so you actually just kind of want to ignore that one. But yeah, there's some more things to it. Like, you can start going into ritual and looking at the different omens. Let's say that when you use your essence, you only want like prefix or suffix. You might want to look at these. But yeah, just looking at the the essences that are available and the mods that you want, you can sort of chart a course for your own craft. So in my case, I wanted crit and I want mana cost efficiency. Or earlier in the season, I wanted spell damage and I wanted mana cost efficiency. So what I did was, rather than like alking wands and seeing if I get lucky, I went to the trade site and I typed in dueling wand, which is the base that we need. And I typed in spell skills 4, and I said this sucker has to be magic. And you can see that these are already 3 div. And the reason for that is this is the beginning of a deterministic craft. If I go here and I say I want rare 4-level spell skills, look what happens. 40 exiles. And that's because the deterministic steps of the craft, the free steps, are already done when this thing is rare. We don't have scouring orbs, so we can't go back. 3 div. So then you can look at what's the second property that people have rolled. Like for me, max mana, I'm mana stacking. It's probably time for me to switch up wands. I may want this one. So we would buy this for 4 div. We would come in here and we would give it spell damage or crit chance, and then it would be rare. Then I would probably go in and perfect exalt with the ritual omen that doubles the exalt. I'll probably look carefully at like the prefixes and suffixes that I rolled, because I want suffix mana cost efficiency in this scenario. You know, this is just like a fake scenario at this point because I'm doing a different build. But then you could come in and grab the perfect essence, which is going to remove a random modifier and add mana cost efficiency. If the item is full, so if the modifiers, if you have 6 mods on it, it has to remove a suffix. So that's a huge thing to realize, because then it gets really deterministic. And you can use the Abyss mod as like a placeholder in that. So that's just something to mention, that if it's 6 modded and your essence mod is either in a prefix or suffix, it has to also remove a prefix or suffix. And then if it's not 6 modded, you can kind of guarantee that with these sinestral and destral crystallizations, but I think these things are pretty expensive. So yeah, that's another way to do it. All told, I mean, if you just go essence, perfect exalt, and the base, you can get this wand plus or minus like a little bit of value. Like this has a dead mod, this has a tier 3 abyss mod, but basically you can get this for like 6 div. If you go out and try and buy this thing, it's going to be hella expensive, I bet. Let me look really quick. Doesn't exist. How do I make it exist? Look at that. And these are probably better than like what I have. That one has crit on it. But yeah, when I said I saved 100 div by crafting just a few pieces myself, I really did, and it might have been even more. All right, all the same logic applies to a focus. Look at your essences, look at what they do to the different things. Go to Craft of Exile, look at the mods. Take note of the item level that's required for the mod that you want. So like for instance, you don't want to buy a base that's less than 78 if you want max spell skills. Then come over here to Craft of Exile and say that you want a focus. You could pick the best base that you want and find yourself a blue base and go out there and essence slam and save a bunch of money and have some decent gear. To get them really perfect, you've got to use a lot of other currency types and sort of refine the final steps of the craft. And I won't talk about all that stuff. That's for the Giga in-game rich guys. Okay, the other thing I'll talk about is the breach rings for this build, because I initially thought these rings were going to be a fortune, and they ended up being really, really cheap. I think I made them both for like less than 2 divs. So what's going on in these rings is really cool, is cast speed and Ellie res in the suffix, and then percent max mana and flat max mana in the prefix. And once again, all I did was I went into the shop, and I think I typed in mana, and I realized that a Greater Essence of the Mind can give you max mana. Now, the roll is not very good. It's 100. So you actually want like the actual, rolled mod there. But the Perfect Essence of the Mind gives you the percent max mana guaranteed, which is pretty crazy. Now, let's go back into Craft of Exile. Let's look at jewelry and rings. And we will look for max mana. Maximum mana? Maximum mana? Yeah, maximum mana. So here's the flat roll here. And we're going to need an item level 75 ring to hit that flat roll. Just helpful to know. And it's in the prefix. And then let's search through this. The other one is down here. So the essence is the only way that you can roll this. And that's like really important to know. And you got mana on kill, mana leech, stuff like that. That's going to show up. But that was kind of what I realized, is that these are both prefixes. And this one is the essence is the only way to get it. So then I went over to PoE trade, and my memory is like a little fuzzy what I did here. So let me kind of jog my mind. So we needed a breach ring, right? I was kind of greedy. I wanted all elemental res, like around 15. And then I wanted cast speed. And what's a reasonable cast speed? Maybe like we'll go 15 there as well. And then max mana. And we'll say 160. Just those 3. Look how cheap it is. Oh my gosh. So now you can decide how deterministic and how gambling you want to be. But look at this one. This is already a sexy ring in the making because we can buy, let me just go do this. We can buy this for 50. This is so cool. I'm just going to go do it. Now there is a gamble step here. So, you know, you can whiff. I think I went through 4 rings whiffing. Oh my God, game, don't crash. I'm in the middle of filming this epic long video. Okay. All right, 50 Exalt. Go back.
Shipment sent.
And then I think it was sorcery. Is it sorcery? Nope. Mana. Mind. There it is. Okay, so remember I said if the prefixes and suffixes are full, this thing can only replace the property that it needs, which, you know, makes perfect sense. Well, remember that down here, max mana is a prefix, and our stat mana is a prefix. So this is a 2 out of 3 for success, right? We've got fizz damage, which we don't want. Evasion, which we pretty much don't want. I mean, we have a little bit of evasion going on, but we pretty much don't want it. However, it's not going to touch our cast speed, our int, or our LE res. So it's a 2 out of 3, you know, 66% chance for success. It could replace the max mana, and that would be a fail. And it did not. And look at that. We already made this ring, basically. The int is lower. And that's the biggest difference. The cast speed is slightly lower as well. But we just spent, let me look up what this essence costs. 3.5 Exalt plus 50. We just spent 53 Exalt for this. So then we also need, there is a little bit more of a cost here. We need neural catalysts. These are about 1 Exalt each. We're going to need like 35 to 40 of them. Okay, so final result is going to be like slightly less than 1 div to get this really, really nice mana ring. So that's how I got the 2 rings. They are not perfect. They could be better. They each have, you know, a little bit of dead mod stuff going on. There's evasion rating there. There's life regeneration here. But they're, you know, super solid for this build. The cast speed allows us to save a lot of points on tree. The LE res helps solve like the overall res equation in this build. So yeah, I really like these rings. There's probably a better concoction out there if you go in there and you dream big, but it also probably costs a fortune. Now let me look really quick what this is worth. I'll take the attributes off and I'll just do this right here. Doesn't exist. 200. 8 div, 16 div. Let's see if these are better or worse. That one's about the same. That one is, depending on how you read it, potentially better if you like those stacked reses, but it also has no attributes. Actually, both of these have no attributes, and mine has 33 int, so yay. Yeah, this is, I mean, you catalyst this up, this is potentially like a 6-8 div ring. I should just be like printing divs off of these things, but I have better things to do, like play the video game. So, okay, those are the 4 slots I crafted. The other slots I purchased off the market. Actually, I did craft this amulet. It was kind of just like a random lucky craft on my previous variant. I'm going to go for a mana stacking amulet eventually. It's going to be extremely expensive, but I won't talk about that now. The helmet, you just want energy shield and resists. Note that you can socket the 3% max mana up here. Very strong. The boots, same thing. Energy shield, resists. These boots have mana and int, which rolls very commonly on boots. I think these were 4 div. I think this was 1 div. The gloves, I actually really don't like these gloves. I think I want like crit bonus. And then, you know, the resists, of course, perhaps less energy shield. The Warrior Invictus, this is not required. I started it with this armor. What you need is just like ES and Spirit. The reason I like the Warrior is because we can stack more mana and we can get our Chaos Res fixed because you cannot run CI when you are Mind Over Matter. Trust me, it won't go well. The other thing I like about Warrior is that we can get a Mom node. See the 15% of damage is taken from mana before life. Great Wolf's Ruin of Willpower. It's actually really cheap. We have reduced effective curses. You know curses in maps suck a ton, so that is really nice. And then we can solve res at will with the remaining 3 slots whenever we need to. So Warrior's pretty sweet like that. We also get like a little bit of evasion, which, 12% evasion isn't like a home run, but it's kind of nice dodging, a tenth of damage from all sources, and a little bit of reduction on the armor. Nothing crazy, but it is something. So yeah, that's why I like the Warrior there. And then obviously with our rings being, sexy mana cast speed rings, the ingenuity is really great. Make sure it has reduced charm charges used. Otherwise, your single-use charms will never go off. Whew. My mouth is really dry, and that was a lot of talking. The last thing I'm going to do is go into a map, just raw, super juiced, totally crazy map, and show you just kind of how this looks, just like a very quick preview. If you want to see a lot of gameplay, I've been streaming every night. All of my VODs are on YouTube. So if you come to my YouTube channel, they don't show up immediately. You have to click this live tab, and then you can watch all of my VODs from recent gameplay. Okay, so really nasty map here. We love nasty maps. We'll go to Blooming Field. Everybody loves Blooming Field. I have a Strongbox Essence farm I'm doing right now. I just released a video and guide on that if you want to do it. It's a really fun farm. And yeah, so, the skill rotation is easier than on the other forms of Spark. And then we get to move really fast because our Sparks are very dense and we don't have to spam cast them. So we're going to do a Frost Bomb, charge up the infusions, and we're just going to kind of like barrel roll, sprint, and spark. And you can see how much damage it does. If you need a little bit more damage, you can tap the Mana Tempest. And then it's not to say that we can't spam. I can sit here and spam if I want to, even with Mind Over Matter on. Remember that I'm running hard Mind Over Matter. There was a little Comet. Gotta run the Strongbox on stream. I don't have any Exalts. Feels bad, man. Now again, when I'm not running Mind Over Matter hard, the natural regen to the mana is extremely strong. And it's like definitely a far better defensive layer to run like a soft Mind Over Matter with nodes and gear rather than the hard Mind Over Matter node. And I know I mentioned that earlier, but I'm just saying it again now because I can see my failure to be able to regenerate is really annoying right here. Need mana, she says. As soon as there's minions dying, we recover like crazy because the recovery on kill is a instant mod, but yeah. Owie. That guy had temp chains on me. Rude. That's my skill. But yeah, hopefully you can see, I'm not going to do like exhaustive gameplay, but hopefully you can see like how much faster this is. And the Comet is still like really fantastic, right? Oh, that's a nice essence right there. There's like a random boss? What is this? Where are you, random boss? I was going to try and find the map boss here and show the map boss rotation. I'll try and get there. I'm a little nervous. I'm running this hard Mind Over Matter and I don't want to die. But it is what it is. You see the value of the build, and dying on Sork is not something that you can avoid forever. I wonder if there's any SSF hardcore Sorks. They probably are. People are awesome. Note too that you can slam down the sigil. Like if you ever need like damage in ritual or like right here in expedition, I slammed down the sigil for the very first spark. And once again, because you're like stacking the shot of the spark, if you just shoot one with a sigil, it's pretty good. Because the unleash is, tripling your spark, and the Scions is like borrowing and shooting tons and tons of sparks. So, yeah, take note of that. Sorcery, is that good enough? I think it's good enough. I did try out Blink for a long time. I don't know what they did with Blink. It's like broken. I don't know if you've seen it. Let me turn it on really quickly. But it like teleports and then sprints a bit. Watch this. And you like run into walls and stuff.
I need more time.
And then you can only sprint if you hold down a sprint after your blink. Otherwise, if you're not in blink mode, you have to jog. So it's kind of crappy. I just got heavy stunned right there because I did a blink sprint. I still want to make it work. I'm going to keep messing around with it, but yeah, that was pretty disappointing. Okay, boss rotation. It's now just a frost bomb. And then you get that elemental weakness down like this. And you can cast some sparks if you want. I mean, they do a lot of damage. But eventually, you just want a Comet, right? That was one spark, by the way. That's so cool.
Get back here, creature.
I don't know how he works. Like, does he phase again? I don't know.
Enough of this.
But he's going to get big. LA weakness. I can do another spark I want. Or I can Comet him. The Comet's crazy damage, right? I think he's like phased. Yep. Can I get another Comet? Yeah, okay. Rawr, let me through. LA weakness again. Sparks. Whee! Or we could Comet. The Comet seems to be about 3 or 4 mil damage. If it crits, it's insane. It's like 15 or 20. And of course, we're going to go up a lot from there. So I think that's about all I wanted to show. I'll come back down and finish this in a little bit.
Good news.
I wanted this video to be under an hour, so we're almost there. Okay, the final thing I'm going to say is talking about where I'm going to go from here. So the big thing still to solve is the balance between a hard mind over matter and running it soft on gear. And right now our jewels are a single crit mod and then damage taken before life for the soft mind over matter. What I would like to do is solve soft without most of the jewels and then run double crit bonus in all of the jewels to get 4, 8, 12, 160% crit bonus on the jewels. I think that's going to be most ideal. But yeah, the jewel, like I think it's the suffixes that are so good. Yeah, jewel suffixes are awesome, and jewel prefixes for mage kind of suck. So that's something I didn't realize. I'm going to do a little experimenting. There's some abyss mods in the prefixes that I could kind of look at, but yeah, that's kind of where that's at. And then another massive upgrade is going to be to the amulet. We're going to get a spirit-based spell damage mana amulet that's going to make our character, like, I don't even know how to calculate, so much more powerful. With the spirit, we can do so many things. You can never have enough spirit in this game, I'm convinced. We could run Clarity 1 and 2 in different gems. I don't know if you knew that. You could run them both, which is going to be 80% increased mana regeneration, which if we're not running Hard Bomb is really, really powerful. Incredible recovery on mana. Going to get this globe up to 6,000. The other thing we could do is run an Enfeeble in Blasphemy, which is going to be another massive defensive layer. I'm really, really interested in doing that. But this amulet on a self-craft is going to be like 20 divs, and that's, you know, with some Gamba steps that could go wrong. So we'll see. That's the other really big upgrade. The final upgrade, like I mentioned, is doing the two-handed staff that has the spell damage per 100 max mana and 7 lightning skills rather than the 6 to all, because we would be on just a plain spark variant if we're dealing that much damage. We can let go of Comet at that point. So yeah, that was pretty much it. I've never done a build guide video like this where I cover everything and talk forever. If you hated it, and you probably didn't even make it this far if you hated it, let me know. If you like this, let me know. This is meant to be a one-stop shop where you can figure out everything about this build and what I'm doing. So I hope it is helpful for at least one person. If you have questions, come on over to our Discord server. I'm in here all day. We have PoE, I label them PoE gurus in here. We have a crafting god. We have just some great people in here, and the conversations are really nice in here, and the discussions are, in a lot of ways, how I learn different things that I do throughout a season. So, yeah, come on by Discord. Follow me on Twitch or watch me on YouTube if you enjoy how I do content. And thanks, everyone, for the support and ongoing collaboration in Path of Exile.